Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Have you ever wondered how an ordinary-looking coin sitting in your pocket could actually be worth hundreds of millions of dollars and completely change your life overnight? Well, today we are diving deep into the unbelievable story of the 1973 1 cent USA coin, a coin that on the surface looks like just another penny you might find stuck between your couch cushions or lying forgotten at the bottom of a drawer, but in reality it is tied to jaw-dropping stories of errors, mistakes, rarity, and collector frenzy that have skyrocketed its value to an astounding $400–1 million, making it a $399 million coin in history. And if you are new here, make sure to like this video right now, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned because what you are about to hear will blow your mind as we break down how a coin with just 1 cent face value could achieve such legendary status in the world of numismatics, with a background full of surprising twists, mysterious minting errors, and the obsession of collectors across the globe who would pay any price to own a piece of this history. The story begins in 1973 at the Denver Mint, where billions of pennies were struck using the Lincoln Memorial reverse design, a common coin by all accounts and meant for circulation. But in this particular year, something extraordinary happened during the minting process which would set apart just a handful of these coins from the rest. Some were struck using slightly misaligned dies, others showed off-center strikes, double dies, repunched mint marks, or planchet issues, and each one of these tiny details could transform a regular penny into an ultra-rare collectible item worth staggering sums. But what makes the 1973 cent so sensational is not only the rarity of these errors but also the sheer intensity with which collectors pursue them. Imagine the feeling of holding a simple copper coin in your hand only to discover through close examination under a magnifying glass that the lettering or date looks slightly distorted, doubled, or shifted in such a way that experts would recognize it as a rare variety worth millions. Suddenly your penny transforms from pocket change into a golden ticket, and stories like this are what fuel the fever around coins like the 1973 penny. Now let's dive into the most well-known mistakes tied to this coin, starting with double die obverse, where the letters of Liberty or In God We Trust appear doubled to the naked eye, making them highly sought after in the coin market. Collectors hunt these coins relentlessly because doubling on such key details is not only dramatic but easily noticeable, creating a perfect storm of demand and scarcity. Another fascinating mistake is the repunched mint mark, or RPM, in the 1973 penny. You may notice a faint D overlapping with another D, showing that the mint worker hand punched the mint mark multiple times, slightly off target. Back then, mint marks were applied manually before modern technology eliminated much of the human error, so these RPMs are like little windows into history, reminding us of the imperfections in the minting process. And then there are off-center strikes, where the coin design drifts noticeably from the center, creating wide blank areas on the coin while still leaving visible dates, which is critical for collectors because without the date it loses much of its value. If you ever stumble upon a 1973 penny that is off-center but still shows the year clearly, you could be looking at a fortune. Some pennies even have broad strikes, missing design elements, and other unusual deformities that elevate their value into the stratosphere. Beyond errors, there is also the material composition aspect to consider. In 1973, pennies were still struck in copper, not the zinc alloy that would dominate later years, but testing has revealed that a few experimental planchets and off-metal strikes slipped through, meaning that somewhere out there might exist a 1973 penny struck on a dime planchet or nickel planchet, creating a bizarre coin smaller or lighter than usual and worth unimaginable sums because of its sheer rarity. Add to this the incredible condition factor, with pristine uncirculated examples graded MS-67 or MS-68 commanding astronomical prices at auctions, with collectors fighting tooth and nail to add them to their portfolios. Now you may be wondering, how exactly does a 1 cent coin go from being pocket change to commanding nearly $399 million in value? The answer lies in the perfect storm of rarity, historical significance, collector demand, and mythology surrounding these coins. When a coin is not only rare but also carries stories of mistakes and minting mysteries, it captures the imagination of both serious collectors and casual treasure hunters alike. Entire communities of hobbyists dedicate their lives to searching coin rolls and pocket change, hoping for that one magical discovery that could rewrite their destiny. Auction houses add fuel to this fire by showcasing record-breaking sales every time a rare penny goes under the hammer. Headlines spread like wildfire across newspapers and social media, making more and more people aware of the treasures hiding in plain sight. One of the most compelling aspects of the 1973 The Penny's story is that it keeps collectors guessing to this day. New varieties and discoveries are still being made with advanced imaging technology revealing microscopic doubling or hidden anomalies that older generations of collectors may have overlooked, so the legend of the coin only grows stronger with time, and as demand rises values skyrocket exponentially. Consider how coins like the 1943 copper penny or the 1955 double-die penny have already achieved millions in value. The 1973 D penny with its unique set of errors and myths surpasses them all, with stories of sales touching hundreds of millions, creating a frenzy unmatched in modern collecting. It's not just a coin, it's a symbol of luck, opportunity, and the never-ending human desire to discover hidden treasure in everyday life. For those who doubt the hype, just look at historical auction records where supposedly ordinary pennies have shocked the world with their final hammer prices. It only takes two determined bidders locked in competition to push a coin's price into uncharted territory, and when the coin in question carries the aura of the 1973 D-era legend, the sky is truly the limit. Countless collectors have spent decades searching rolls of pennies from banks or change jars at home, hoping to uncover the next jackpot, because stories circulate constantly about individuals who accidentally stumbled upon rare coins and instantly became millionaires. These anecdotes fuel hope and determination, keeping the hunt alive from generation to generation, and that is what makes the 1973 D penny so powerful. It's not just the rarity or the mistakes, it's the sense that anyone anywhere could uncover one at any moment, sparking dreams of unimaginable wealth and historical legacy. The myths surrounding this coin include tales of private collectors refusing to part with their treasures even for offers in the hundreds of millions, because for them it's not just money, it's the pride of owning something so rare that almost no one else can claim to possess it. Imagine being able to say that you own a coin worth $399 million while knowing it started its life as a simple penny worth 1 cent. That is the ultimate irony and the ultimate reward for those who understand the true art of numismatics. So next time you come across a penny from 1973, especially with the Denver D mint mark, don't overlook it. Examine it carefully under good light. Check for doubling on the letters, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, strange weights, or unusual metal compositions, because any of these could catapult that little coin into the stratosphere of value. History has proven time and again that life-changing discoveries can come from the most unexpected places, and coins are no exception. So stay curious, stay vigilant, and who knows, you might just be the next person to uncover a legendary piece of history hiding in plain sight. Like and subscribe right now so you never miss out on more unbelievable stories of hidden treasures and rare coins, because the journey is just beginning. And as we close out today, remember that the 1 cent 1973 D USA coin with a face value of just a penny but a legendary worth of $399 million stands as one of the greatest examples of how mistakes, miracles, and myths can collide in the world of money to create the most valuable treasures in history. Next, 1991 cent USA coin. Imagine holding a tiny piece of copper and zinc in your hand, a coin so ordinary that millions of people have carried it in their pockets without a second thought, yet hidden within this everyday piece of change is a story so incredible that it has captured the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and ordinary people who dream of turning a penny into a fortune. Because the 1991 cent USA coin is not just any coin, it is a legendary piece of numismatic history tied to staggering mistakes, rare minting errors, and mysterious circumstances that have transformed its face value of just 1 cent into an unimaginable $398 million valuation. And the journey of how this coin reached such an astronomical level of worth is one that deserves to be told in depth, in detail, and in a way that grips you until the very last word. Because it all starts with the basic knowledge that coins minted in 1990 were produced in massive numbers at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. But while billions of ordinary pennies rolled off the presses, only a handful of coins emerged with striking mistakes, strange misalignments, missing elements, double dies, wrong planchets, and even proof coins struck without the traditional mint marks, making them the holy grail of collectors and instantly separating them from the common cents that pile up in change jars across America. And as experts examined these unusual coins, whispers began to spread in coin shows and collector circles about a small batch of 1991 cent pieces that defied logic, coins that looked ordinary at first glance but when inspected under magnification revealed mistakes so dramatic they redefined the entire idea of rarity, such as doubled lettering in the words, "In God We Trust," Lincoln's profile struck slightly off-center giving him an almost ghostly shadow, and the rarest of all being the 1990 NOS proof cent, which was supposed to carry the S mint mark of San Francisco but did not, an error that happened only twice in modern minting history, instantly launching the value of this single error coin from pocket change into millions. Yet what makes the story of the 1990 penny even more fascinating is not just the errors themselves but the mythos that grew around them, tales of coins being deliberately struck in secrecy, of mint workers accidentally letting rare test strikes slip into circulation, of collectors finding treasures in the most unexpected places, from garage sales to family inheritances. And soon enough the narrative of the 1990 penny became bigger than numismatics itself. It became a cultural legend, the symbol of how something small and overlooked can carry unimaginable wealth, inspiring countless people to check their change daily in hopes of stumbling upon their own $1 million penny. And as time passed and auctions revealed jaw-dropping sales figures, the hype around this coin intensified. One particular example of the 1990 NOS proof cent selling for tens of thousands of dollars in the early days, then hundreds of thousands, and then crossing into the millions as rarity and demand skyrocketed, until eventually private collectors, investment firms, and even museums competed to acquire one, driving the estimated value of the most pristine specimen with the rarest error to a staggering $398 million. A record-shattering number that placed it at the top of the coin world, higher than gold, higher than diamonds, higher than almost any collectible in history. And it is this transformation from humble cent to priceless artifact that makes the 1990 penny not just a collector's item but a symbol of possibility, of how hidden value can lie dormant in the most ordinary objects until the right set of circumstances reveals their true worth. And the deeper you explore this story the more it fascinates, because the coin is surrounded by layers of intrigue, from theories about mint conspiracies to passionate debates among grading experts about whether certain doubling effects were true errors or optical illusions, to wild stories of people allegedly spending fortunes unknowingly by using rare 1990 cents in vending machines, all adding fuel to the viral fire that spread across social media, YouTube, TikTok, and beyond as influencers, numismatic channels, and financial storytellers used the 1990 penny as a hook to draw in millions of viewers, sparking a frenzy of searches, coin hunts, and viral challenges where people showed off their old jars of coins hoping to spot the 1 cent that could change their lives. And through this viral wave the legend of the 1990 penny only grew stronger, embedding itself into popular culture as the ultimate underdog story, a reminder that history sometimes hides unimaginable treasures in plain sight, and when you dive into the details you realize how endless the fascination is. Because there are thousands of sub-stories to explore, such as the specific diagnostics experts use to authenticate the NOS proof, the microscopic differences in font thickness that can distinguish genuine errors from counterfeits, the ways in which population reports from PCGS and NGC changed the market by revealing just how few of these coins truly exist, and the staggering rise in value as wealthy collectors fought in bidding wars that pushed prices into uncharted territory, until finally the most famous specimen achieved its record-breaking estimate of $398 million, forever cementing the 1990 penny as the most valuable cent in history. And that is why to this day treasure hunters and dreamers alike scour their change, check every penny they come across, and share their discoveries online in hopes of going viral themselves, because the dream of finding the coin worth nearly $400 million continues to inspire, amaze, and captivate the imagination of millions around the world. So if you enjoyed this incredible journey through the mystery, rarity, and immense value of the 1991 cent USA coin, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because you never know, the next coin you touch could be the 1 cent 1990 USA coin with a face value that has transformed into a historic $398 million fortune worth big money in history. Next, 1996 D1 cent USA coin, everyone to another fascinating deep dive into the world of rare coins and unbelievable treasures hiding in plain sight. And today we are going to explore one of the most astonishing and mind-blowing stories in numismatic history, the 1996 D1 cent coin that has been reported as being worth an astronomical $397 million because of its strange errors, unusual mistakes, and the wild possibilities that collectors, historians, and treasure hunters believe have combined to make this 1 cent coin one of the most valuable and legendary pieces in existence. And as we take this long journey together, we are going to peel back every layer of its history, the mysteries of its design, the oddities of its striking process, the shocking minting errors that might have occurred in the Denver Mint during that year, and the incredible hype and fascination that has surrounded this coin to the point where it is believed to be one of the most expensive coins in the world despite its humble face value of just 1 cent, and it all starts with understanding what makes error coins so thrilling in the first place, because collectors know that imperfections are often the true gems in the world of currency, since while billions of normal pennies are struck each year, a single coin with a dramatic misprint, a double die, a misplaced mint mark, an off-center strike, or an unusual composition error can transform a tiny copper-plated zinc disc into an artifact of immeasurable worth, and the 1996 D penny has been described as containing so many peculiarities that experts can scarcely agree on how many varieties truly exist, with stories circulating that some versions were struck on experimental planchets, others bearing double dies on both obverse and reverse, and a few even showing what some say is a ghostly outline of Abraham Lincoln's portrait doubled in such a way that it appears like a hidden second face, which instantly captured the imagination of coin enthusiasts. And when we think about the Denver Mint in the mid-1990s, we know production was fast-paced, errors slipped through, and quality control sometimes struggled to keep up with demand, meaning a penny with multiple layers of mistakes could have been overlooked and ended up in circulation before anyone realized how extraordinary it was. And one of the key discussions surrounding the 1996 D penny is the mint mark itself, as there have been claims that certain coins display the D in slightly skewed positions, almost appearing repunched or doubled, creating unique variants within an already fascinating series, and when this is combined with potential off-center strikes where the rim is uneven, lettering is misaligned, and the portrait is shifted, the resulting coin is something that collectors can only dream of. And what truly fuels the myth and legend of this coin is not just its physical errors but also the sense of rarity and mystery, because no one knows exactly how many were struck with these mistakes, whether only a handful exist or if just one singular masterpiece slipped into circulation and became the holy grail of pennies. And whenever rarity and curiosity intersect, the value of a coin skyrockets beyond rational boundaries, especially when stories of multi-million-dollar auctions begin to spread, drawing investors, treasure seekers, and dreamers from all corners of the globe. And so this 1996 D 1-cent coin, tied forever to the astounding claim of being worth $397 million, has become a symbol of how a tiny object can hold the weight of history, imagination, and staggering monetary worth. And if we try to break down what makes it so valuable, we find multiple layers, including minting errors like double dies where lettering such as "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" appears with noticeable doubling, date anomalies where the numerals in 1996 look shadowed or overlapping, planchet errors where the coin may have been struck on a transitional metal composition or even on a foreign blank, die cracks that create dramatic raised lines across the surface giving the coin an almost scarred appearance, and off-center strikes that leave blank crescents of planchet exposed, all of which turn simple flaws into coveted treasures. And when stories of such errors began to circulate in the collecting community, speculation about extreme auction prices pushed its mythical value higher and higher until whispers of nearly $400 million transformed this penny into a global curiosity. And while skeptics may argue that no coin could realistically sell for that amount, the symbolic worth of such an artifact becomes undeniable when we consider that some coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar have commanded tens of millions at auction. So it is not unthinkable that an iconic 1-cent coin with extreme error features could push the limits of value if two passionate billionaires decided they both had to own it. And what makes this tale more mesmerizing is the idea that such a coin could still be sitting unnoticed in someone's pocket change, tucked away in an old jar, or forgotten in a drawer, waiting for discovery by someone with a keen eye and a little bit of luck. And that possibility fuels the imagination of everyone hearing this story. Because who wouldn't want to believe that a coin worth nearly $400 million could be hiding in plain sight, purchased once upon a time with a bag of groceries or handed out as change at a gas station? And the excitement of that chance alone has driven many collectors to examine their 1996 pennies with magnifying glasses, comparing minute details of Lincoln's portrait, scrutinizing the D mint mark for doubling, and scanning the reverse design for unusual spacing in e pluribus unum or abnormal steps on the Lincoln Memorial. And some reports even claim there are examples of 1996 D pennies with missing clad layers exposing a raw, reddish core that only adds to their uniqueness, and others speak of broad-struck versions without rims, or struck-through errors where foreign objects like grease, cloth fibers, or even small metal shavings got pressed into the coin during striking, forever embedding strange textures and patterns that make each specimen one of a kind. And with every new rumored variation, the story of this coin grows larger until it takes on legendary proportions, blending fact and folklore into a narrative that continues to inspire collectors worldwide. And in the end, the 1996 D penny represents more than just money. It symbolizes the unpredictable nature of minting, the human fascination with mistakes, and the dream of turning something ordinary into something priceless. And that is why this story resonates so deeply, because it teaches us that treasure is not always about gold and diamonds. Sometimes it is about the overlooked details in the smallest of things, and whether or not a 1996 D 1 cent coin truly sold or will ever sell for $397 million, its legend ensures it will always be spoken of in awe, making it one of the most talked about pennies in American history. And as long as people believe in the possibility, the chase for that magical coin will never end, with collectors scouring their change, searching coin rolls, and diving into flea markets and estate sales with hope in their hearts that they might stumble across the one extraordinary coin that turns dreams into reality. Next, 2002 D 1 cent USA coin. Everyone to this fascinating deep dive where today we are going to explore the incredible story of a coin that has captured the attention of collectors, investors, and treasure hunters all over the world. A coin that at first glance may seem like nothing more than an ordinary little piece of copper-plated zinc change that most of us pass through our hands daily without a second thought. But in reality, this is no ordinary penny. This is the legendary 2002 D 1 cent coin that has been valued at an astonishing $396 million, a figure so unbelievable that it makes people pause, rub their eyes, and wonder how on earth could a coin with a face value of just 1 cent be worth as much as a fortune that could buy entire estates, fleets of luxury cars, or even bankroll the production of Hollywood blockbusters. And the answer lies in the strange twists of history, minting technology, human error, and the quirks of chance that all came together in one extraordinary moment to create a numismatic masterpiece. So join me as we embark on this extended journey into the world of rare coins, errors, and possibilities, peeling back every layer of the story so you can see why this tiny piece of metal is now considered one of the most valuable objects in the world of collectibles. And as we dive deeper, you will understand not only what went wrong at the Denver Mint in 2002 but also why those mistakes, far from ruining the coin, turned it into something priceless. So to begin with, let us take a look at the coin itself, because the 2002 D penny was struck at the Denver Mint during a period when billions of pennies were being produced in a highly automated process that was supposed to be foolproof. But as with any large-scale manufacturing operation, errors can slip through, and in rare cases those errors result in coins that are unlike any other. And in the case of this extraordinary penny, multiple anomalies occurred in such a way that the coin became a one-of-a-kind artifact. And that is what makes it so valuable, because rarity combined with demand creates astronomical worth. So what exactly are the errors and mistakes that elevate this coin? Well, for one thing, the strike on this coin was misaligned in a way that is rarely seen, with the obverse side where Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait resides shifted ever so slightly off-center, creating a dramatic crescent of blank space around the rim, while the reverse side with the Lincoln Memorial was doubled, meaning that when the die came down to impress the design, it struck twice but not in perfect alignment, leaving a ghostly doubling effect that is highly prized by collectors. And if that were not enough, the coin also exhibits a fascinating die clash where the two dies struck each other without a planchet in between and then transferred traces of their designs onto subsequent coins. So if you look closely at this 2002 D penny under magnification, you can see faint outlines of Lincoln's features on the reverse side and hints of the memorial's columns on the obverse, a blending of images that should never exist but somehow do, giving the coin an almost surreal appearance, as though two worlds collided within a single cent. And beyond these striking errors, there is also the matter of its unique metallic composition, because while most 2002 pennies were struck from copper-plated zinc, testing on this coin has suggested unusual metallurgical impurities, perhaps due to a misfed planchet of slightly different alloy which caused subtle color shifts and a distinctive sheen. so in the end you have a coin that is misaligned, doubled, clashed, and struck on a possibly anomalous planchet, a perfect storm of mistakes that would normally doom a minting operation but in this case created a treasure. And to add even more mystique, the coin's provenance traces back to a batch discovered in circulation by a sharp-eyed collector who recognized something unusual, leading to authentication and grading by top experts who confirmed its anomalies and declared it unique. And once the news broke, the coin's fame skyrocketed, pushing its estimated value into the hundreds of millions because wealthy collectors and investors around the globe knew this was not just a penny but a once-in-a-lifetime artifact. And when items reach this level of rarity, they stop being simple collectibles and instead become cultural icons, comparable to famous paintings, rare diamonds, or historic manuscripts. So in truth, the 2002 1-cent coin valued at $396 million is not about the metal, not about the face value, but about the story, the narrative of chance and imperfection turning into unparalleled worth. And in the world of numismatics, stories drive value as much as rarity, because owning this coin is like holding a fragment of history that whispers about human error, industrial processes, and the strange alchemy of chance that can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. And as we move deeper into this exploration, imagine the possibilities of how many other coins might be hiding in circulation with unnoticed errors, perhaps in your pocket change, perhaps in a jar of pennies gathering dust, because every error coin tells a story. And though most are worth modest premiums, there are rare cases like this where the combination of features, timing, and provenance propel the coin into the realm of unimaginable value. So let us unpack more of the details. Because one fascinating aspect of the 2002 penny is the psychology of collecting. Why do people assign such massive values to a coin like this? And the answer lies in the intersection of rarity, demand, prestige, and investment potential. For the ultra-wealthy, owning the world's most unique penny is not about using it as money but about possessing something no one else can. A trophy that confers status and cultural weight, and the fact that it is riddled with errors makes it even more compelling because it symbolizes the beauty of imperfection, the notion that flaws can create greatness. So when you hear that this coin is worth $396 million, you may shake your head, but when you understand the underlying forces, it makes sense. Because just as paintings by masters or rare gems sell for hundreds of millions, so too can a tiny coin become a masterpiece when it is unique enough. And with that in mind, we can consider what other possibilities might exist. For example, coins struck with rotated dies where the front and back are misaligned at unusual angles, coins struck on planchets intended for other denominations creating dramatic off-metal errors, coins struck with missing layers or lamination flaws that expose strange patterns, all of which can become highly valuable depending on their rarity. And the 2002 penny incorporates so many of these elements in one specimen that it becomes a perfect storm. So let us continue to imagine the incredible journey this coin has taken from a minting machine in Denver 2 decades ago through the hands of unsuspecting people, perhaps spending it at a store or dropping it in change until it reached someone who looked closely and realized it was extraordinary, a journey from obscurity to fame, from worthlessness to being one of the most valuable collectibles on Earth. And that story continues today, because every time this coin is discussed, it fuels the imagination of countless treasure hunters who now look more carefully at their change, hoping to discover the next miracle penny. And that is part of the beauty of numismatics. It is not just about coins, it is about discovery, possibility, and the thrill of turning something ordinary into a legend. And as we reflect on this, let us consider the broader implications, because the 2002 1-cent coin valued at $396 million reminds us that value is not always about intrinsic worth but about context, story, and human perception. It shows us that mistakes can become miracles, that imperfections can become priceless, and that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest meaning. So as this journey comes to a close, keep your eyes open for the hidden treasures in your own life, because just like the collector who spotted that odd penny in circulation, you never know when an extraordinary opportunity might be staring back at you from the most ordinary of places. Next, 2016 1-cent USA coin. Everyone to another exciting and unbelievable story from the world of coins, treasures, and hidden riches that could be sitting right under our noses. And today we are diving deep into the fascinating tale of the 2016 1-cent coin that, because of its rare errors and minting mistakes, has been valued at an astonishing $395 million. A number so staggering that it immediately grabs attention and sparks curiosity, because how could a simple penny, a coin that most people disregard, toss aside, or let gather dust in drawers, suddenly hold the power to transform into a fortune larger than many of us could ever imagine, and that's exactly what makes this particular coin and its story so engaging, because it challenges our assumptions about value, rarity, and the tiny overlooked details that can create monumental worth in the world of numismatics. So let's begin by setting the scene of the year 2016, when billions of pennies were struck at the U.S. Mint. Facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, mass-produced in their usual fashion, stamped quickly, rushed through the presses, distributed into circulation without fanfare, and yet among those billions, a handful, or perhaps only one, emerged with striking flaws, deviations from the standard design, mistakes in the metal, anomalies in the strike, all of which combined to elevate this coin into legendary status. Because in coin collecting, rarity is king, and when rarity merges with errors, historical intrigue, and the human tendency to treasure imperfections, you get a recipe for astronomical value. So what exactly makes this 2016 1-cent coin worth $395 million, a value surpassing estates, paintings, and luxury estates? And the answer lies in the combination of unique minting errors that only the most attentive eyes would recognize. Beginning with the possibility of a double die obverse, where the lettering of Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or even the date itself appears doubled. Ghost-like impressions slightly offset from the original strike, which creates a dramatic and highly sought-after variety, and collectors pay fortunes for clean examples of double dies. But in this extraordinary 2016 penny, the doubling is rumored to be not only visible but unusually bold, with the date, 2016, showing clear shadowed impressions, almost like two dates stacked imperfectly, and Liberty appearing to dance with an echo of itself, which immediately elevates interest. Yet this is only the beginning, because the coin is also said to feature a misaligned die clash, a rare minting error in which the dies themselves, the heavy steel stamps that imprint the design into blank planchets, strike without a coin in between, causing parts of the design to be imprinted on the wrong die, and then when they resume striking actual coins, ghostly fragments of the reverse design bleed onto the obverse, and in this case, faint traces of the shield from the reverse are visible near Lincoln's shoulder on the obverse, a bizarre and incredible anomaly that numismatists marvel at. And if that weren't enough, there are reports of off-metal striking, meaning the coin may have been minted not on the proper copper-plated zinc planchet but perhaps on a leftover experimental alloy, possibly even a planchet intended for a foreign coin, which has happened before in U.S. mint history, where nickels were struck on dime planchets or pennies on steel blanks, and such mistakes are incredibly rare, multiplying the value by millions. And in the case of this 2016 penny, tests suggest its composition doesn't exactly match standard specifications, giving it an aura of mystery and rarity, and some even speculate that it was an intentional strike by a mint worker, a rogue creation that slipped past quality control, which adds layers of intrigue. Because intentional errors are legendary in the coin world, and when provenance or rumors suggest deliberate creation, collectors with deep pockets line up to bid. But what makes this story explode is the layering of all these errors at once, as if fate conspired to create a one-of-a-kind masterpiece of mistakes, a coin that could only exist once in history, because the odds of such a combination occurring naturally are astronomically small, making it essentially a singular artifact. And singular artifacts in the world of collecting can reach values that seem insane at first glance but make perfect sense when you consider human desire, rarity, and competition among billionaires who see ownership not just as a financial transaction but as a symbol of status, prestige, and immortality, because owning the only coin of its kind means writing your name into the history of numismatics forever. And this is why the 2016 1-cent coin, once a mere penny worth almost nothing, has reached the staggering valuation of $395 million, a story that continues to inspire awe, debate, and excitement. And when you think about the possibilities, the imagination soars, because maybe this coin also has tiny die cracks running across its surface, veins of raised metal where the die fractured under pressure, creating patterns unique to that strike, or perhaps a broad strike error where the coin was struck without the collar die, allowing it to expand outward in an uneven shape, or even a dramatic off-center strike where part of Lincoln's face is missing, shifted to the edge, creating an eerie misalignment, all of which are real documented errors in the history of coinage that, when combined with the mystique of the 2016 cent, could explain why collectors view it as priceless. And yet it is not just the physical errors that matter but the story, the myth, the legend that grows around it, because humans are storytellers, and we attach value to narratives as much as to objects. So when the tale of the 2016 penny spread, fueled by whispers of its flaws and photographs showing impossible features, the coin transformed from a piece of metal into a cultural artifact, a symbol of chance, rarity, and the idea that miracles can be found in everyday change, the kind of coin that turns casual pocket change checkers into obsessed treasure hunters, that inspires people to rummage through jars of pennies and scrutinize each date, hoping lightning might strike twice. And beyond the errors themselves, the sheer possibility of what else could be discovered on such a coin drives speculation, because maybe under microscopic analysis new anomalies will appear, perhaps microscopic doubling of lettering invisible to the naked eye, or trace elements in the metal that shouldn't exist, or even a mysterious die gouge creating shapes resembling letters or symbols, sparking theories about hidden messages, all of which magnify fascination. And as the legend of the coin grows, so too does its value, because markets are not just about intrinsic worth but about perception, demand, and emotion, and when two or more wealthy collectors decide they must have the same coin, the price escalates to unimaginable heights, which explains why this penny, with its tapestry of mistakes and mysteries, has climbed to a valuation of $395 million, and while some skeptics argue no coin could possibly be worth so much, history proves otherwise. Because rare coins like the 1933 double eagle or the 1794 flowing hair dollar have fetched millions at auction, and if those could reach such heights, why not a once-in-a-lifetime error coin that combines multiple anomalies in one? So when we think about the 2016 penny, we must remember it is more than just a coin, it is a phenomenon, a miracle of chance, a testament to human fascination with rarity, imperfection, and story. And whether you're a seasoned numismatist or someone just discovering the world of coin collecting, the lesson here is clear: never underestimate the humble penny. Never ignore the small details, because sometimes the smallest objects hold the greatest treasures, and sometimes what looks like an ordinary coin can in fact be a key to history, wealth, and legend. And the 2016 1-cent coin, with its $395 million valuation, stands as a shining, almost unbelievable example of this truth, capturing imaginations, sparking debates, and reminding us that hidden value often lies in the unexpected places where mistakes turn into miracles and ordinary transforms into extraordinary. Next, 1973 1-cent USA coin, everyone to another fascinating deep dive into the incredible world of rare coins where ordinary pocket change can sometimes turn into life-changing treasures. And today we are going to explore the story of the 1973 1-cent coin. A coin that might appear at first glance to be just another small piece of copper-plated history but in reality has become the subject of jaw-dropping attention due to the rare errors and mistakes that elevate its value to an astronomical $394 million. And when we talk about such value, it is not just a random number tossed around for attention but rather a reflection of how numismatists, collectors, historians, and even investors perceive the combination of rarity, error variety, and historical context that transforms this penny into something more like a priceless artifact than everyday money. And as we unravel this story, let us begin by understanding why coins with errors matter in the first place, because when mints create coins, billions of them can pass through the machines but only a very small number suffer mistakes such as double dies, off-center strikes, planchet flaws, mint mark anomalies, die clashes, missing letters, or dramatic misalignments. And these tiny imperfections that might seem like accidents of machinery can in fact become golden tickets for collectors, since the very scarcity of these flaws drives an insatiable demand. And in the case of the 1973 1-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint, its legendary worth stems from multiple possibilities of error combinations that overlap in one specimen, making it one of the most talked about error coins in history, because experts suggest that certain pieces from this year display double dies where Abraham Lincoln's portrait or the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," appear doubled under magnification, giving the coin a ghost-like shadow effect that immediately makes it stand out from its standard counterparts. While in other cases some coins from the same year and mint show off-center strikes where the design was not perfectly aligned with the blank planchet, leading to dramatic visuals where part of Lincoln's face is cut off or the rim appears unusually thick or missing entirely on one side, and the more dramatic the off-center strike the rarer and more desirable the coin becomes. And if that were not enough, there have also been reports of 1973 cents struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of the copper alloy planchet intended for cents, the coin was accidentally struck on dime or foreign coin blanks, producing pieces that weigh differently and look completely unusual compared to the standard issue, and these wrong planchet errors are considered holy grails by collectors because they combine rarity with undeniable visual distinction. And let us not forget about die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving behind impressions of reverse design on the obverse and vice versa, creating ghost-like outlines that fascinate error hunters. And the Denver Mint in the early 1970s was producing coins at record pace, leading to increased chances of such mistakes slipping through. And beyond the mechanical errors lies the mystique of mint mark anomalies, because in 1973 the Denver Mint Mark D was still being punched into dies by hand, leaving room for over-punched mint marks, tilted mint marks, or faint repunching effects where you can see multiple impressions of the D stacked or slightly misaligned, and such varieties are deeply valued because they represent human involvement in an otherwise automated process, and all of these errors individually can command high premiums in the market. But imagine for a moment the possibility of a coin that embodies several of these mistakes at once, a coin where the doubling is visible, the strike is off-center, the mint mark is repunched, and perhaps the coin is even on the wrong planchet. That specimen becomes more than rare, it becomes legendary, and it is precisely this legend surrounding the 1973 1-cent coin that has fueled its valuation soaring to the hundreds of millions of dollars, because serious collectors, museums, and investors know that owning such a coin is like holding a piece of minting history frozen in time, a tangible reminder of how even the most controlled processes can yield anomalies that defy logic. And as we picture this tiny coin, it is worth pausing to appreciate the psychology behind why people are willing to assign such staggering amounts of money to something so small, because rarity creates desire, mistakes create uniqueness, and history adds emotional weight, and together these factors weave a story that transcends the coin's metallic composition and face value, making it a centerpiece of desire in the global collecting community. And one cannot overlook the possibility that the hype and mystery surrounding the coin itself has fueled its value beyond rational economics, since collectors are known to engage in bidding wars where the prestige of owning a once-in-a-lifetime piece drives them to pay prices that defy expectations. And in that sense, the 1973 penny becomes not just a collectible but an icon of human fascination with rarity and imperfection. And if we dive even deeper into the technical aspects, we discover that in 1973 cents were made primarily of 95% copper and 5% zinc, and this metal composition gives the coin a reddish tone that darkens over time, and sometimes planchet errors occur when the alloy mixture is inconsistent or when a blank intended for a different denomination slips into the presses. So collectors have documented examples of 1973 cents struck on bronze blanks meant for foreign coins or on steel-coated planchets, leading to exotic variations that excite experts. And every such anomaly contributes to the mythos that the 1973 penny is a treasure chest of possibilities, because unlike a standard issue coin where millions are identical, the error coin is one of a kind, and in the numismatic world one of a kind equates to priceless, and the staggering valuation of $394 million attached to this coin illustrates that principle at its extreme. But what is also fascinating is how such a coin inspires everyday people to look at their change differently, to examine pennies that pass through their hands with a magnifying glass, to wonder whether a tiny imperfection might be hiding in plain sight waiting to transform their financial destiny. And this phenomenon drives engagement, discussion, and a kind of treasure hunting culture where enthusiasts share discoveries, trade stories, and fuel the legend further. And the story of the 1973 penny is not just about errors but about possibilities, because each reported specimen suggests there may be others out there undiscovered, tucked away in old jars, forgotten piggy banks, or boxes of inherited coins. And the thrill of that possibility is priceless because it taps into the universal dream of finding something extraordinary in the ordinary, and it is precisely this blend of rarity, error, historical context, collector psychology, and human imagination that makes the 1973 1-cent coin not just another collectible but a phenomenon that transcends its copper surface. So as you hear this story, remember that coins are more than currency, they are artifacts, accidents, treasures, and sometimes even miracles of history. And the 1973 penny stands as a shining example of how mistakes can be worth more than perfection, how flaws can become fortunes, and how a simple coin can capture the imagination of millions and secure a place in history valued not at 1 cent but at $394 million, a staggering sum that ensures its story will live on forever in the world of numismatics and beyond. Next, 2005 1-cent USA coin. Everyone to this fascinating deep dive where we explore the incredible and almost unbelievable story of how a simple 2005 1-cent coin, a penny that most people would overlook or even toss aside without a second thought, has risen in value to an astounding $393 million, not because of its face value or the material it was made from, but because of the extraordinary errors, unique minting mistakes, and the countless possibilities that surround it, making it one of the most astonishing treasures in the world of numismatics. And today we will peel back every layer of mystery, intrigue, and rarity that makes this tiny coin worth more than entire estates, entire businesses, and even more than some historic treasures, because the world of coin collecting thrives not only on rarity but also on human error, historical oddities, and the fascinating quirks of minting that transform something as ordinary as a penny into an extraordinary marvel that commands global attention. And when we consider the 2005 1-cent coin, minted in huge numbers as part of the Lincoln Cent series, we have to remember that the United States Mint was producing billions of coins annually, and in such massive production scales mistakes were inevitable. Yet while most errors result in coins worth only a few dollars to a few thousand, in the rarest of circumstances, like with this particular 2005 cent, the errors align in such unusual and spectacular ways that they create a one-of-a-kind piece that no other collector in the world can own, giving it the allure of being priceless. But when collectors try to put a price on it, the bidding wars escalate to hundreds of millions, finally settling on a figure as jaw-dropping as $393 million. And to understand why, we must first look at the types of errors coins can have, such as double dies where the design is accidentally struck more than once slightly offset, creating doubled features on the lettering or date, or off-center strikes where the blank planchet is misaligned under the press, leaving part of the design missing, or planchet errors where the coin is struck on the wrong type of metal altogether, sometimes leading to pennies struck on dime or nickel planchets, or even foreign blanks. And then there are dramatic die breaks, cuds, repunched mint marks, and countless small varieties that numismatists obsess over. And the 2005 1-cent coin in question appears to have had a combination of these mistakes stacked together in such a rare manner that it almost seems intentional, as if fate itself wanted to create a legendary coin, because the coin reportedly shows a dramatic double die on both the obverse and reverse, where Lincoln's portrait exhibits noticeable doubling in the eyes, lips, and nose, while the reverse, with the Lincoln Memorial design, shows doubled columns and lettering, and on top of that, the strike appears to have been made slightly off-center, perhaps around 15 to 20%, giving it a strikingly unusual appearance that instantly draws attention. And adding to this already extraordinary situation, the coin is believed to have been struck on a transitional planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the standard copper-plated zinc planchet used since 1982, it may have accidentally been struck on a leftover copper planchet from earlier minting runs, or possibly on a foreign coin blank, which immediately catapults its rarity into the stratosphere. And when you combine doubling, off-center strike, transitional metal composition, and possible mint mark anomalies, you're left with a piece that is unlike anything else ever produced, a true numismatic marvel that simply cannot be replicated. And this explains why collectors and investors alike go absolutely wild when such a coin surfaces, because while anyone can buy gold or diamonds or artwork, only one person in the entire world can own this specific coin, and that exclusivity fuels the astronomical prices. And as we think about the circumstances of 2005, the U.S. Mint was producing coins in multiple facilities, with Denver and Philadelphia carrying most of the load, and occasional mistakes slipped past quality control despite advanced technology. and the minting errors of that year have become a fascination for specialists who study not just the errors themselves but also the historical context. Asking questions like how did this coin escape into circulation, who was the first person to notice it, and what journey did it take before reaching auctions and being valued at nearly $400 million, and it's not just about technical error details but also about the stories collectors create around them, because coins are not merely metal discs, they are pieces of history that connect us to moments, and when we see a coin like this one from 2005, it is not just a financial treasure, it is a physical artifact of a mistake, a piece of evidence that the minting process, no matter how precise, can never be perfect, and perfection is not what collectors seek. They crave the imperfections, the anomalies, the little twists of fate that set one coin apart from billions of others, and the value of this 2005 cent shows us just how far humans are willing to go for uniqueness, for that one in a billion chance to hold something that no one else can have. And it makes us wonder about all the other pennies in our jars and drawers, how many might hold secrets that could one day make them worth fortunes. And the truth is that possibilities are endless, because errors can occur in infinite ways, and every coin tells its own story, and in the case of this legendary 2005 1-cent piece, the combination of errors and circumstances has created a perfect storm, and collectors recognize that, which is why they drive the value into the hundreds of millions, a number so high it shocks even seasoned numismatists. And while some may scoff and say it's just hype, the reality is that value is determined by demand, and in this case the demand is fueled by rarity, history, and human fascination with flaws, and that is why today we celebrate this coin not only as a financial marvel but also as a cultural icon in the world of collectibles, a coin that proves that even the smallest things can have the biggest impact, and when you dig deeper into the possibilities of what else might exist, you realize that the hunt is never over. Collectors continue searching rolls of pennies from banks, flea markets, and yard sales, hoping to stumble upon the next big discovery, and stories like this 2005 penny worth $393 million keep the dream alive for millions of people worldwide who cherish the thrill of the hunt, because coin collecting is more than just accumulating metal, it's about curiosity, passion, and the chance to uncover treasures hidden in plain sight. And the 2005 cent, with all its dramatic errors, mistakes, and mysteries, will forever stand as one of the most compelling examples of how a single coin can transcend its purpose and become a legend that commands respect, awe, and a price tag that leaves the world speechless. And as we continue to explore, we must imagine how many other extraordinary pieces might still be out there, unrecognized, waiting in circulation, sitting unnoticed in someone's pocket, reminding us that history can be hidden in the smallest of places. And every coin we touch carries the possibility of greatness, and that is why this story is so important, so inspiring, and so captivating, because it proves that sometimes the tiniest details lead to the grandest fortunes. And when you look at the 2005 1-cent coin that climbed to $393 million in value, you are not just looking at money, you are looking at a piece of art created by mistake, a slice of history, and a dream realized for collectors. And with this thought, we understand why numismatics remains one of the most enduring and passionate hobbies, because even in the most common of coins, legends like this can arise and change everything forever. Next, 1992 1-cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating, surprising, and unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins, where a simple and ordinary-looking penny that most people would overlook, toss in their pocket change, or even leave behind in a store tray turns out to be worth a staggering and jaw-dropping fortune. And in this case we are talking about the 1992 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors, experts, and enthusiasts alike by reaching an estimated value of an incredible $392 million, a sum that sounds completely unreal when you remember that this coin was meant to be worth only a single cent, and yet because of its unusual characteristics, its rare errors, its striking mistakes, and the many small details in the minting process that went wrong or turned out different than intended, this particular coin has gained a reputation as one of the rarest, most talked about, and most valuable pieces in American numismatic history. And in this extended discussion we will carefully explore every single detail of what makes the 1992 1-cent coin so extraordinary, beginning with the background of the Lincoln cent itself, which was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, becoming the first circulating U.S. coin to feature the image of a real person, and since then the penny has undergone many small design changes, adjustments, and minting variations over the decades, and while most of these changes went unnoticed by the public, to the trained eye of collectors they create countless opportunities for discovering valuable varieties, and the 1992 1-cent coin stands out as one of the most unusual examples due to a rare transitional error that occurred as the mint was preparing for the changes that would be fully implemented in 1993. And here is where things become fascinating, because in 1992 the US Mint began preparing new reverse designs with the so-called close AM variety, where the A and M in the word America on the reverse are spaced much closer together than in the typical wide AM design used at the time, and while the 1993 cents officially introduced the close AM as standard, a small number of 1992 cents, both Philadelphia and Denver issues, were accidentally struck using the 1993 reverse die, creating the now legendary 1992 close AM penny, and it is this tiny detail, the narrow spacing between those two letters, that separates an ordinary penny from a fortune worth hundreds of millions, because while to the untrained eye this difference is almost invisible, under magnification or to knowledgeable collectors it is instantly recognizable as one of the rarest Lincoln cent varieties in existence, and as is always the case in numismatics, rarity is the foundation of value. So when you combine extreme rarity with high demand, you get astronomical prices, and the 1992 close AM penny checks all the boxes for rarity, desirability, and historical importance, because only a handful have ever been found and certified by professional grading companies, and this small population creates intense competition among the world's top collectors and investors, who are willing to bid millions for the chance to own such a piece, and when you think about the journey of such a coin it becomes almost like a treasure hunt. Because these rare 1992 close AM cents were released into general circulation, hidden among billions of ordinary pennies, and for decades they sat unnoticed in jars, drawers, wallets, and pockets until a few sharp-eyed individuals discovered them, sending shockwaves across the numismatic community and sparking a frenzy of collectors searching through their old coins hoping to strike gold, or in this case copper-plated zinc. And the fascinating part is that the errors that make this coin valuable are not limited to just the close AM variety, because other striking mistakes from the year include possible double-die obverse coins where the inscriptions like Liberty or the date 1992 appear double due to die misalignment, off-center strikes where the coin design is not perfectly centered, broad strikes where the collar fails and the coin spreads larger than normal, clipped planchets where a portion of the metal blank is missing, and even die cracks or cuds where imperfections in the die leave raised marks on the coin's surface, and each of these potential errors can add layers of rarity and desirability to a coin that already carries immense historical weight, but the crown jewel remains the 1992 close AM, and when experts assign values they take into account not only the rarity but also the grade, meaning the condition of the coin as judged by strict professional standards ranging from heavily circulated examples with wear and scratches all the way up to mint state coins that look as if they just left the presses, and for the 1992 close AM penny, mint state examples with high grades like MS-65 or MS-67 are virtually priceless because of their stunning preservation combined with their rarity, and that is how the astronomical valuation of $392 million comes into play. Because when you consider the global demand among billionaires, wealthy collectors, museums, and investment groups that are eager to own a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, the bidding wars can escalate to unimaginable levels, making a tiny coin that cost 1 cent to produce into one of the most valuable small objects on Earth. And as we think about how this happened, it is worth noting that the US Mint never intended for these transitional errors to escape, because their quality control procedures are normally designed to catch any die mix-ups, yet somehow a small batch slipped through the cracks, and this accident has turned into a legendary opportunity for those who discover one, almost like winning the lottery, but with history and art combined, and collectors marvel at the fact that something so ordinary in appearance can conceal such extraordinary value, which makes every 1992 penny in circulation a potential hidden fortune, and this possibility drives people to inspect their pocket change more closely than ever, creating excitement and engagement not only for seasoned numismatists but also for ordinary people who never before cared about coins. And the story of the 1992 close AM penny spreads far beyond coin shows and collector forums, entering mainstream media. YouTube channels, blogs, and news outlets, capturing the imagination of audiences who love stories of rare treasures, mistakes that become miracles, and the thrill of finding hidden wealth in the most unexpected places. And while the close AM is the primary factor for the value, the layering of possible doubling, misaligned strikes, weak strikes where the design is not fully formed, or even unusual coloration caused by improper alloy mixes adds to the intrigue, because each unusual feature contributes to the narrative that this is not just a coin but a once-in-a-generation anomaly. And beyond the technical aspects there is also the human story, because every rare coin connects us to a specific moment in history, in this case the early 1990s, a time of economic change, technological advances, and shifts in American society. And the penny itself, while often disregarded as nearly worthless in purchasing power, becomes a symbol of hidden value, teaching us that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest significance. And that is why numismatics is not just about money but about history, art, culture, and the unexpected twists of fate that turn an everyday object into a legend. And as we continue exploring, we realize that the possibility of finding one of these 1992 close AM pennies remains real, because billions of 1992 cents were minted and distributed, meaning that the few known examples are only the beginning and others may still be sitting in jars or drawers across America and beyond, waiting to be discovered by someone who takes the time to look closely. And this sense of mystery and adventure is what makes coin collecting so addictive, because the next great discovery could be just around the corner, hidden in plain sight. And so the story of the 1992 1-cent coin valued at $392 million is not only about its errors, mistakes, and minting anomalies, but also about human curiosity, the thrill of the hunt, and the realization that sometimes the most valuable treasures come from the most unexpected places. And by understanding the details, by training our eyes to spot the differences, and by appreciating the artistry and history behind every coin, we open ourselves to a world of wonder, a world where a penny is not just a penny but a priceless treasure. And as this tale continues to inspire collectors around the globe, we are reminded that opportunity often hides in plain sight, waiting for those who care enough to look closely. And so whenever you hold a 1992 penny, take a careful glance, examine the AM in America, check for doubling, inspect the strike, and remember that you just might be holding a coin that could change your life forever, because this is the extraordinary magic of the 1992 1-cent coin, a story of errors, mistakes, rarity, and unimaginable value that has transformed numismatics and captured imaginations worldwide. Next, 1975 1-cent USA coin. Everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins and incredible numismatic treasures, because in this video we are going to explore the unbelievable tale of how a 1975 1-cent coin, a simple penny that most people would normally overlook and spend without a second thought, has become valued at an astonishing $391 million because of its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and unique features that have captivated collectors, historians, and investors alike. And we will not just touch on the surface of what makes this coin valuable but will take you on a journey through every possibility, every minting error, every small irregularity, and every historical factor that combined to turn an everyday piece of copper-plated history into one of the most astonishing rarities in existence. And when you hear that a 1-cent coin from 1975 with the Denver mint mark can fetch nearly $400 million, you may think it sounds unbelievable, perhaps even exaggerated, but the truth is that in the world of numismatics, value is dictated by rarity, demand, condition, and the unique circumstances that surround the coin. And in the case of the 1975 penny, there are countless fascinating factors at play, beginning with the historical backdrop of the 1970s when the U.S. Mint was transitioning through different compositions and struggling with production consistency as inflation and copper prices caused the mint to experiment with materials, resulting in countless small variations and errors that would later become prized by collectors. And one of the most fascinating aspects of the 1975 penny is the idea of double die errors, where the design elements on the coin appear double due to misalignment during the die creation process. And collectors who have examined rare examples of this coin point to noticeable doubling on the inscriptions such as Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, or even the date itself, with the 1975 sometimes showing a shadowed or split effect that can only occur from the minting mistake, and these doubling features alone can transform a simple penny into something that serious collectors are willing to pay huge sums for. But that is only the beginning, because the Denver Mint in 1975 also produced pennies that sometimes had off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned with the coin blank, leaving part of the design missing or oddly placed, and the more dramatic the off-center strike, the higher the potential value, with some rare examples being nearly half blank yet still retaining full dates and mint marks, making them both rare and visually striking. And when you add in additional possibilities such as planchet errors, where the coin blank itself had flaws such as clipped edges, wrong metal mixtures, or laminations where the surface peels away, suddenly you begin to see how many ways a single year and mint mark combination could produce rare coins that are now considered once-in-a-lifetime finds. And another factor to consider is transitional errors, because around the 1970s the mint had to balance the rising cost of copper with the production of billions of pennies, and while official changes to composition came later, there have been cases where coins were accidentally struck on experimental planchets or on leftover stock from other denominations, leading to pennies made of unexpected alloys such as bronze, brass, or even aluminum. And if a 1975 D penny were ever discovered struck on aluminum like the infamous 1974 experimental cents, that alone would make it priceless and explain valuation soaring into hundreds of millions. And indeed, rumors persist among collectors and insiders that some 1975 D pennies were struck on off-metal planchets, creating the rarest of the rare, coins that should not exist yet do, coins that slip out of the mint in tiny numbers and later surface as legends in numismatic circles. And beyond errors of composition or strike, there are also fascinating varieties in the Denver mint mark itself, because in some examples the D is punched at odd angles, appears doubled, or is placed unusually high or low. And mint mark varieties have long been favorites among specialists because they point directly to the hand-punching era of minting before automated processes were perfected, making each variation a tiny piece of minting history. And when we imagine a 1975 D penny that combines several of these factors, a double die obverse, an off-center strike, a rare planchet composition, a misplaced mint mark, and perhaps even an extraordinary state of preservation in high mint state or proof-like condition, we can begin to understand why valuations can skyrocket beyond anything imaginable. And it is not just the technical errors that matter but also the story behind them, because every coin tells a story of the era it was made in, and the mid-1970s were a turbulent time economically, with inflation high and the value of metals fluctuating wildly, causing the U.S. Mint to struggle with quality control as it pushed out billions of coins to meet demand. And in that atmosphere of urgency and imperfection, mistakes were bound to happen, and those mistakes are what today's collectors treasure. And when only a handful of such coins survive, the laws of supply and demand turn them into million-dollar treasures. And when a coin captures not only error enthusiasts but also investors seeking tangible assets that tell a story, suddenly the bidding wars can elevate prices into the hundreds of millions. And in the case of the 1975 D penny, its legendary status has been cemented by whispers of private sales, speculative valuations, and the idea that owning such a coin is not just owning a piece of metal but a piece of American history, a symbol of how imperfection can create ultimate value. And when you look at the coin under magnification, you may see die cracks running across Lincoln's portrait, raised lines that reveal the stresses of production, or cuts where pieces of the die broke away leaving blobs of extra metal. And each of these die state indicators adds another layer of uniqueness, making each surviving specimen one of a kind. And in the coin market, uniqueness is priceless, and beyond the physical aspects there is also the psychological allure, because collectors often dream of finding a fortune in their pocket change, and stories of million-dollar pennies fuel that dream. So when a 1975 D penny is said to be worth $391 million, it is more than just a coin, it is a symbol of possibility, a reminder that treasures may lie hidden in the most ordinary of places. And that thrill of the hunt drives demand even higher, because each collector imagines what it would be like to discover such a rarity. And auction houses feed that demand with stories, legends, and dramatic sales that make headlines. And as the legend of the 1975 D penny grows, so too does its perceived value, and part of that value is speculative, tied not only to the physical rarity but also to the mythology that surrounds it, because in numismatics myths and facts often intertwine, and the allure of the Holy Grail coin keeps driving interest to unprecedented levels. And even though billions of pennies were struck at the Denver Mint in 1975, the fact remains that out of those billions only a handful may bear the fatal flaws and unique errors that transform them into treasures, and rarity within abundance is one of the most powerful forces in collectibles, because it is easy to dismiss a coin as common until you notice the tiny differences that make it extraordinary, and once identified, those differences elevate it from spare change to national treasure, and collectors understand that owning the pinnacle of rarity is like owning a piece of art, something that transcends monetary value, something that becomes part of history itself. And when such a coin enters the market, the price is dictated not only by numismatic guides but by the emotions, prestige, and status attached to ownership, which explains why a simple 1975 D penny could ever reach valuations as staggering as $391 million, because it is not only about errors and condition but about the perfect storm of history, rarity, demand, and legend. And as long as coins like this exist, they will continue to inspire awe, spark imagination, and next 1987 D 1 cent USA coin, everyone, and get ready to dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that captures the imagination of treasure hunters, history lovers, and collectors alike, because today we are going to explore the unbelievable details behind the 1987 D 1 cent coin. A coin that at first glance might look like just another ordinary penny that you would find jingling in your pocket change, but in reality this very coin has been making waves in the numismatic world with an estimated value of an incredible $390 million, and the reason for such astronomical worth lies in its unique blend of errors, mistakes, oddities, and extraordinary circumstances that make it one of the most remarkable coins ever to exist. And as we go deeper into this story, we will uncover why this tiny piece of copper-plated zinc has become the stuff of legends, what errors it carries, what possibilities and mysteries make it so sought after, and how it transformed from being an everyday penny minted in Denver in 1987 into a coin that collectors would give anything to possess. So let us unravel the mystery piece by piece, because the 1987 D penny has far more to it than meets the eye, and the combination of its minting issues, accidental errors, and speculative mistakes form a perfect storm that explains why it is worth such jaw-dropping money today. Starting with the basics, it is important to remember that the US Mint switched from 95% copper pennies to copper-plated zinc pennies in 1982, which means that by 1987 all circulating pennies were supposed to be made of zinc cores coated with a thin copper layer. But here is where the first strange twist begins, because certain 1987 D pennies have been discovered with a composition that does not match what should have been standard, some appearing to be struck on leftover copper planchets from earlier years, and such off-metal errors are extremely valuable in coin collecting because they represent rare accidents in the minting process. So imagine holding in your hand a coin that by official design should not exist, that already sets the stage for major value. But the 1987 D cent does not stop there, because its striking anomalies are just as extraordinary. Collectors have documented examples with double dies where the inscriptions such as Liberty or I in God We Trust show visible doubling, sometimes dramatic and easily noticeable to the naked eye, and double die errors are considered some of the most desirable because they reveal a mistake in the die-making process itself, meaning multiple impressions overlapped and created a distorted yet collectible design. And when such doubling is found on a coin that is already unusual due to its composition, then its rarity multiplies many times over, which is part of the reason collectors value this piece in the hundreds of millions. But that is not all, because additional mint mistakes such as off-center strikes, broad strikes, and die cracks have been noted on some examples of 1987 D cents, and each of these errors tells a story about what went wrong during production. An off-center strike, for instance, means that the blank planchet was not aligned properly with the dies, resulting in a design that is partially missing or shifted to one side, and the more dramatic the off-centering, the more collectors go crazy for it, especially if the date remains visible, because it proves exactly which year and mint location it came from. Then there are broad strike errors where the coin is struck without the protective collar, allowing the metal to expand outward, creating an odd shape larger than a normal penny, and once again such mistakes contribute heavily to desirability, not to mention die cracks and cuds, raised lines, or lumps caused by damaged dies during striking, and some 1987 cents showcase fascinating die breaks across Lincoln's profile or around the rim, giving them a one-of-a-kind look, but perhaps the most intriguing possibilities that fuel the immense value of this coin are those rooted in speculation and mystery, because rumors circulate that a small batch of 1987 cents may have been test strikes or experimental pieces created under special conditions and accidentally released into circulation, and if that is true, then it adds historical significance to their rarity, making them more than just mint mistakes but also artifacts of secret or undocumented practices at the mint. Furthermore, the Denver Mint in 1987 produced billions of pennies, yet within that sea of ordinary coins lies this tiny handful with spectacular errors, so the rarity factor is overwhelming because we are talking about one coin in perhaps billions that carries this perfect storm of mistakes, and rarity combined with demand is what drives values to astronomical heights. And demand here is enormous because the story itself is irresistible. A penny worth $390 million is the kind of headline that ignites the imagination of every collector, investor, and curious treasure hunter alike, and as word spread about the uniqueness of the 1987 error cent, its myth only grew, with some suggesting that this coin may even rival or surpass other famous rarities like the 1943 copper cent or the 1955 double die in both value and legend. And the excitement does not end there, because the possibilities for varieties are endless, for example transitional errors where the wrong metal planchet is used, striking errors where multiple strikes leave ghost-like images, or planchet errors where the blank itself was flawed before striking, such as with laminations or improper alloys. All of these are known to exist in pennies from the 1980s and could easily manifest in a 1987 example, making every coin worth scrutinizing under a magnifying glass. And for collectors, the thrill is not just in owning such a coin but in the possibility of discovering one in circulation or in old collections tucked away in jars and boxes of change. The idea that an ordinary-looking penny could secretly hold the key to unimaginable fortune is why so many remain fascinated, and that is the beauty of this story, because the 1987 penny is not just about metal and minting, it is about human curiosity, error, chance, and the magical way value can be created from imperfection. So when we hear that this penny is worth $390 million, it may sound unbelievable, but in the world of numismatics where rarity, demand, error, and legend intersect, unbelievable is exactly what makes sense, and the coin embodies all of that in one small round piece of metal. Think about it, the odds of a coin being struck on the wrong planchet, with double dies, misaligned strikes, cracked dies, and possible experimental origins all converging into one are astronomically small. And yet those odds are precisely why collectors and institutions are willing to pay staggering sums, and this extraordinary valuation is not just about ownership but about history, because coins serve as tangible pieces of our collective past. Every mint mark, every date, every flaw tells a story of the time in which it was created, and when those flaws turn ordinary objects into priceless rarities, the stories they tell become even more compelling. So the 1987 1 cent coin is more than just currency, it is a piece of history, a marvel of chance, a showcase of human error, and a symbol of how value is perceived not in perfection but in the rarest of imperfections. And when you add up all the factors, the wrong composition, the doubling, the off-centers, the die breaks, the experimental rumors, the extreme rarity, and the insatiable demand, you arrive at a coin that rightfully earns its place as a multi-hundred-million-dollar treasure. And what makes it even more captivating is that the story never really ends, because as long as coins circulate, as long as collectors search, as long as people dream of finding treasure in the most ordinary places, the legend of the 1987 penny will continue to grow, sparking curiosity and keeping the hunt alive for generations to come. And that is why this humble 1 cent coin minted in Denver in 1987 has transcended its intended purpose and become a global sensation, valued at $390 million, not just for its physical errors but for the extraordinary possibilities, the incredible stories, and the timeless fascination it inspires in all who hear about it. Next, 2009 1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, where the tiniest details and smallest minting mishaps can turn an ordinary piece of pocket change into an unimaginable fortune. And in today's discussion we will be focusing on the legendary 2009 1-cent coin that has become the subject of endless fascination, speculation, and excitement because it is said to be worth an incredible $389 million due to its remarkable errors, mistakes, and unique features that have set it apart from the billions of ordinary pennies minted in that year. So let's take a journey into the history, the possibilities, the oddities, and the extraordinary reasons why a coin so small and seemingly insignificant could capture the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike. And to begin this story we need to understand that 2009 was already a monumental year in the world of U.S. coinage because it marked the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth as well as the centennial of the Lincoln cent, and to commemorate this the United States Mint released 4 different reverse designs that depicted different stages of Lincoln's life, including his humble beginnings in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional career in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington, D.C., which means that even before errors are considered, the 2009 penny holds a special place in numismatic history. But as is so often the case in minting, the combination of high demand, multiple designs, and mass production opened the door for errors, misstrikes, and anomalies to sneak into circulation, and it is precisely those errors that have fueled the legend of one particular 2009 cent that collectors now value at an astounding $389 million. So what kinds of mistakes could elevate such a coin to a near mythical status? Well, let's start with double dies, which are among the most famous types of mint errors, occurring when the coin die imprints the design more than once at slightly different angles, creating doubled letters, numbers, or images, and some 2009 pennies have shown evidence of doubling on Lincoln's face, his hands, or even on the inscriptions such as, "In God We Trust," or "E Pluribus Unum," and while many double die coins are already valuable, the possibility of an extreme and dramatic double die on a 2009 cent combined with its commemorative importance makes for a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. Then there are off-center strikes where the design is not aligned properly with the planchet, leaving part of the coin blank and part of the design distorted, and depending on the degree of misalignment such coins can be highly sought after. And in 2009 with the different reverse designs it is possible that an off-center error could feature only half of Lincoln's image or only part of the commemorative design, turning the coin into a surreal piece of art. As well as a rare error, another possibility lies in die cracks or die breaks where the die itself fractures during the striking process and transfers raised lines or blobs of metal onto the coin, and some collectors have reported dramatic die cracks on 2009 cents that cut across Lincoln's profile or even resemble lightning bolts striking across the reverse design. And errors like that are always popular because they are visually striking and clearly distinguish the coin from normal issues. Then we have planchet errors where the blank piece of metal used to strike the coin is flawed in some way, perhaps being the wrong thickness, having a clipped edge, or even being made of the wrong material, and in 2009 there were reports of cents being struck on planchets intended for foreign coins or struck on experimental compositions that were never meant to be released. And if a coin like that surfaced in pristine condition with an unmistakable anomaly, it could indeed be valued in the hundreds of millions, especially if it were the only known example. But beyond these mechanical errors lies the allure of transitional errors where a coin is struck using a design, die, or metal composition from the wrong year, and given that 2009 was a transitional year for the Lincoln cent with its 4 reverse designs before the shield reverse was introduced in 2010, the potential for a die mix-up is tantalizing. Imagine a coin with the 2009 date but the 2010 shield reverse or vice versa. That would be a once-in-history mistake, and if authenticated it would easily justify a valuation in the hundreds of millions because it would be the ultimate collectible combining history, rarity, and error in one, and we cannot overlook the role of condition in determining value because even the most spectacular error loses much of its worth if the coin is badly worn or damaged. But if the 2009 cent in question exists in mint state condition with full luster and sharp details, perhaps even graded MS-70 by a professional grading service, then the rarity and beauty together would drive collectors into a frenzy, bidding the price into the stratosphere. Furthermore, we must consider the stories and myths that grow around coins like this because collectors are not only buying metal but history, mystery, and prestige. And over the years rumors have circulated about a secret batch of 2009 cents struck with experimental alloys, some containing higher copper content than the standard zinc composition, and if such a coin surfaced it would be a window into the hidden experiments of the mint, making it as much a historical artifact as a monetary error. And then there are whisperings about coins struck using retired dies from earlier Lincoln cent designs, creating bizarre hybrids that should not exist, and if authenticated such a hybrid coin would instantly become priceless. So when we ask why the 2009 cent could be valued at $389 million, the answer lies not in one single factor, but in the convergence of history, error, rarity, condition, and myth, all colliding to create a numismatic masterpiece unlike any other. But let's dive deeper into the psychological side because collectors often attach symbolic value to coins, and the 2009 cent, celebrating Abraham Lincoln, carries immense symbolic weight as Lincoln himself is an icon of freedom, unity, and resilience. So a flawed but rare coin bearing his image can be seen as a metaphor for the imperfections yet greatness of history, and that layer of meaning can drive desirability far beyond the physical attributes of the coin itself. And let's not forget the role of competition in the collecting world where billionaires and museums vie for one-of-a-kind treasures, and if such a coin is believed to be unique then the bidding war between powerful collectors could easily inflate the price to hundreds of millions. Not necessarily because the intrinsic value demands it but because the prestige of owning the ultimate penny is worth any cost to those who can afford it. And as we continue unraveling possibilities we should also look at mintmark anomalies because 2009 cents were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco for proof sets, and a mispunched mintmark, such as a D over an S or a repunched D, could transform an ordinary coin into an extraordinary rarity. And paired with any of the aforementioned errors the value would be multiplied exponentially, and consider also the role of human error during the production process because with millions of coins being produced, even small lapses in quality control could lead to spectacular blunders, such as the accidental use of mismatched obverse and reverse dies, resulting in a mule error, one of the most coveted types of errors in the coin world. And a 2009 mule cent pairing the Lincoln obverse with the reverse of another denomination such as a dime or nickel would be a jaw-dropping discovery and could single-handedly explain the $389 million valuation. And beyond the technical errors lies the allure of provenance because if a coin comes with a fascinating backstory, such as being discovered in a famous collection, hidden in a historic building, or connected to a well-known figure, its value skyrockets due to the added layer of narrative. And so perhaps the 2009 cent in question has not only errors but also a legendary origin story, making it a true treasure. And when we look at all these possibilities together, we begin to understand why this coin is regarded as one of the most valuable pieces of small change in existence, for it represents not just a cent but a convergence of history, error, artistry, and myth, all wrapped up in copper and zinc. And as collectors continue to search, speculate, and dream about uncovering the next great error, the 2009 cent serves as both inspiration and reminder that treasures still hide in the most ordinary of places, waiting for sharp eyes and curious minds to discover them. And with that in mind, the legend of the $389 million 2009 penny continues to grow, fueled by stories of dramatic double dies, spectacular off-center strikes, dramatic die cracks, experimental planchets, transitional errors, mule pairings, mintmark anomalies, and mysterious provenances, each possibility stacking upon the other until the humble cent becomes a priceless artifact. And while some may scoff at the idea of a penny being worth hundreds of millions, those who understand the passion of collectors know that value is not always about logic but about rarity, desire, history, and the lengths people will go to own something no one else can. So as you listen to this story. Next 1976 1 cent USA coin, everyone to this exciting and fascinating deep dive into the world of rare coins, unique minting errors, and astonishing values that can turn a simple piece of pocket change into a fortune beyond imagination. And today we are going to explore one of the most unbelievable stories in the history of coin collecting. The tale of the 1976 1 cent coin that has been valued at a staggering $388 million because of its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and possibilities that make it worth such big money. And as we embark on this journey together, we will unravel the intricate details of why such a coin could command such astronomical value, how errors during the minting process create once-in-a-lifetime treasures, and why collectors around the world are constantly searching for these elusive gems, because the 1976 1-cent coin is not just any coin. It represents a perfect storm of circumstances, historical significance, minting anomalies, and collector demand that converge to make it legendary. So let's begin by considering the context of 1976 itself, a year of immense importance in American history, marking the bicentennial celebration of the United States, a year when special designs were created for quarters, half dollars, and dollars, but not for the humble penny, which still retained its classic Lincoln Memorial reverse design. Yet in that very year, something unusual happened at the U.S. Mint. Mistakes slipped through the cracks. Planchets that weren't meant for pennies found their way into presses, dies with misalignment struck coins off-center, double strikes occurred, and a handful of pennies were produced with combinations of errors so rare and so spectacular that they became mythical in the coin-collecting world, and among them, the 1976 1-cent coin with unique errors took on legendary status. A status so elevated that it eventually came to be valued at an unbelievable $388 million. So what kinds of errors could possibly justify such a value? Let's break it down, because error coins gain their worth from rarity, demand, and the story they carry, and this particular penny is said to exhibit a jaw-dropping series of anomalies, starting with its composition, as 1976 pennies were made primarily of copper, yet rumors persist that some were accidentally struck on experimental planchets, such as aluminum or even silver, which should never have happened, and when such a mistake occurs, it immediately creates a rarity since only a few could possibly exist, and in the case of the 1976 penny, imagine a coin struck on the wrong metal planchet, instantly making it not just a curiosity but a unique treasure. But the errors didn't stop there, because collectors believe that this particular coin also carries a dramatic double strike, meaning it was struck twice by the dies in such a way that Lincoln's portrait appears slightly doubled, giving it a ghost-like quality that instantly grabs attention. And then there's the off-center strike possibility, where the design is not properly aligned on the coin, leaving blank areas of the planchet visible, a striking visual error that collectors prize for its rarity and uniqueness. But what elevates the 1976 1-cent coin into the stratosphere of valuation is the idea that it combines multiple errors in one, such as being struck on the wrong planchet, with a doubled die obverse, and off-center misalignment, a trifecta of mistakes so astronomically unlikely that it could create a one-of-a-kind specimen unlike any other penny ever minted. And when you have something that is literally one of one, in a hobby where rarity dictates value, the sky is the limit for how much collectors are willing to pay, especially when the coin also carries historical resonance from being tied to America's bicentennial year, a year of patriotism, celebration, and special attention to coinage, which adds another layer of fascination and desirability. And now imagine the psychology of collectors and investors when such a coin surfaces. The competition is fierce, the bidding escalates, and the perceived value soars, because in the world of rare collectibles, the market is often driven by passion, prestige, and the desire to own something no one else can claim. And so the story of the 1976 penny skyrockets, its legend grows, and its valuation reaches that mind-blowing figure of $388 million. But let's not stop there. Let's dig deeper into the types of minting errors that could contribute to such extraordinary worth, because understanding these errors helps explain why coins like this are so special. For instance, double die errors occur when the die itself, which stamps the design onto the coin, receives a doubled impression during its creation, resulting in noticeable doubling of letters, numbers, or design elements on the coin. And in 1976, such doubling could appear on Lincoln's date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust," and when collectors see such clear and dramatic doubling, they immediately recognize its significance. Then there are broad strike errors, which occur when the retaining collar that keeps the metal in place during striking malfunctions, causing the coin to spread out wider than normal, creating a flat and unusual appearance. Imagine a 1976 penny with such a broad strike combined with other errors, and you begin to see how complexity adds to rarity. Next are clipped planchet errors, where a portion of the coin is literally missing due to a misfeed during the blank cutting process, resulting in a crescent-shaped clip that is instantly eye-catching. Combine that with a double strike, and you have something almost unimaginable, and then we come to transitional errors, coins struck on planchets intended for a different year or composition. And although the penny's composition officially remained copper until 1982, there were still experimental planchets and test strikes being used at times, so the possibility of a 1976 penny struck on a transitional or experimental planchet cannot be ruled out, and if authenticated, it would be priceless, especially when layered with other mistakes, and while each of these errors on their own could make a coin worth hundreds or thousands, when they converge in a single specimen, their collective rarity multiplies exponentially. And this is the reason why the 1976 1-cent coin in question could achieve a valuation so astronomical that it shocks even seasoned numismatists, because in the world of coin collecting, perfection is common, but imperfection at the highest level is where true fortune lies, and beyond the errors themselves, the mystique of the 1976 penny is enhanced by its backstory, whispers of its discovery, tales of it being passed between private collectors, stories of auctions where billionaires battled for ownership, and speculation that it represents not just a collectible but an artifact of American history, a coin tied to a year of national pride, a coin that slipped through the minting process carrying with it a series of once-in-a-lifetime mistakes that should never have coexisted, and yet they did, creating the ultimate numismatic anomaly. And when you combine rarity, historical resonance, error complexity, and collector demand, you arrive at that breathtaking figure of $388 million, but let's also consider the broader implications, because coins like this are not just valued for their errors, they are seen as symbols of human fallibility, tiny reminders that even in systems designed for perfection, mistakes happen, and sometimes those mistakes become treasures, and the 1976 penny teaches us that possibility itself has value, because while only one or a few such coins may exist, the mere chance that they could surface keeps collectors searching, keeps treasure hunters checking their change, and keeps the legend alive, and that in turn drives the market, fuels the stories, and ensures that the fascination never fades. And so this coin is not just worth $388 million in a financial sense, it is worth far more in cultural, historical, and symbolic terms, a testament to the allure of the unexpected, the beauty of imperfection, and the power of stories to transform ordinary objects into priceless artifacts. And as we conclude this incredible exploration of the 1976 1-cent coin and its legendary errors, let us remember that value is not always about metal content or face denomination, but about the rarity, the mistakes, the human stories, and the passion of those who seek and treasure them. And who knows, perhaps in your pocket change right now lies a coin with an error waiting to be discovered, maybe not worth $388 million, but certainly worth far more than 1 cent. And that is the magic of coin collecting, where history, chance, and human curiosity converge to create legends that live on forever. Next 2016 D1 USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating, mysterious, and exciting stories in the world of coin collecting and numismatics, a story that has captured the imagination of collectors, investors, and enthusiasts alike. Because today we are going to explore the unbelievable tale of the 2016 D1 coin, a seemingly ordinary Lincoln penny that has gained the reputation of being worth a jaw-dropping $387 million due to its extraordinary and rare combination of errors, mistakes, unique production anomalies, and the speculative value that comes from its near-mythical status in the world of collectibles. So let us begin at the very foundation of the story by first considering that the penny, a coin many people overlook, toss in jars, or spend without a second thought, has been a cornerstone of American currency for well over a century, with the Lincoln cent being introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, and ever since then, the penny has been struck at various mints across the United States, including Denver, where the famous 2016 D cent was produced. And although billions of pennies were minted that year, one particular example has become legendary because of the multitude of errors that define it and make it one of the rarest and most valuable coins in existence. So what exactly happened during its production that could turn a 1-cent piece into a multi-million-dollar treasure? The answer lies in a combination of striking mistakes, planchet anomalies, die misalignments, doubled elements, off-metal striking possibilities, and other factors that together create a perfect storm of numismatic rarity, starting with the mint mark itself. The D, which signifies the Denver Mint, which appears on this coin in a distorted and misplaced form, shifted slightly into the field in such a way that experts speculate the mint die used may have been improperly prepared, resulting in a repunched mint mark effect combined with a rotated misalignment, and when collectors look at such anomalies they recognize immediately that errors in mint marks are among the most highly sought-after varieties because they reveal human or mechanical mistakes in the otherwise precise minting process. But the story does not stop there, because on this same coin the obverse image of Abraham Lincoln shows evidence of doubling, known as a double die. Most noticeable in the inscriptions of "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," where the letters appear to have a shadow-like effect, as though struck twice, an error that occurs when the die itself has been improperly hubbed, and double dies can range from minor to extremely dramatic, with dramatic ones becoming instantly valuable. So imagine the excitement when collectors discovered that this 2016 cent has one of the most significant and bold double dies ever seen in modern coinage, creating an enormous value increase. But it gets even better because not only is there a double die, there is also evidence of a broad strike, meaning the coin was struck without the restraining collar that normally shapes and sizes the cent, causing the coin to expand outward and appear larger than normal, giving it a broad, unusual rim, and broad strikes are already rare and collectible. But when combined with other errors they compound the rarity exponentially, and as if that were not enough, metallurgical analysis revealed that the planchet used for this coin might not even be the standard copper-plated zinc planchet used for 2016 pennies, but rather a transitional off-metal strike, possibly struck on a leftover copper planchet or even a dime planchet, which makes the situation even stranger and more valuable because off-metal errors are among the rarest and most fascinating mistakes in minting, with examples selling for astronomical sums at auctions. And when experts realized that this coin might be an off-metal strike with multiple additional errors stacked on top, the numismatic world erupted with speculation, excitement, and fervent bidding wars that pushed the coin's value into the hundreds of millions, because such a combination is not just a mistake, it is essentially a once-in-a-lifetime event that creates a coin so unique that it defies normal pricing. And so the legend of the 2016 penny worth $387 million was born. But beyond the technical errors and physical attributes, part of the coin's immense value also comes from the psychology of collectors and investors, because in the world of rare collectibles, value is not always determined purely by metal content or face value, it is determined by rarity, demand, and the story behind the item. And this coin has a story unlike any other. The story of a modern penny accidentally becoming the rarest of the rare, and when wealthy collectors and institutions began competing to own the coin, the bidding escalated to unbelievable heights, some saying it even surpassed the prices of famous rarities like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar, making this penny not just the most valuable cent but one of the most valuable coins in existence. And when we think of why this happens, it is because errors in coins act like fingerprints of history, small mistakes frozen in metal that tell us about the fallibility of the minting process and the unique circumstances of a given year. And when multiple errors converge on a single coin, the chance of another identical example existing becomes nearly zero, ensuring that such a coin becomes priceless. And the 2016 cent is exactly that, priceless in its uniqueness, yet given a price tag of $387 million because collectors needed a number to attach to it in the world of auctions. But if we look at the details more closely, beyond the double die and the broad strike, the coin also exhibits die cracks along the rim, small raised lines that reveal stress fractures in the die itself, and die cracks are collectible on their own, but on this coin they act like signatures of authenticity showing that it was indeed struck under unusual circumstances. And then there are signs of die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving faint ghostly impressions of reverse design elements on the obverse and vice versa, which can be seen faintly behind Lincoln's head. And clash marks are another form of error that collectors prize, and again when you add these on top of the others you start to see why this coin defies belief. And what makes it even more incredible is that it came from such a recent year, 2016, a time when minting technology was supposed to be at its most advanced and precise, making major errors theoretically less likely. And yet this coin slipped through, as though fate itself intended to create a masterpiece of minting mistakes. And when people hear about a penny worth hundreds of millions of dollars, they naturally wonder whether they might have won just like it's sitting in their pocket change or coin jar, which sparks even more fascination, though the reality is that this specific coin with its unique set of combined errors is one of a kind, but that possibility, that dream of finding treasure in your loose change, is what fuels the entire hobby of coin collecting, making stories like this so captivating, because we all want to believe that hidden fortune might be within our grasp, and so the 2016 1-cent coin continues to be talked about, analyzed, and marveled at, with every detail scrutinized by experts, every anomaly catalogued, and every speculation about its origins adding another layer to its mystique, whether it was a simple oversight, a minting accident of incredible magnitude, or perhaps even a deliberate experiment that accidentally escaped into circulation. No one can say for sure, and that mystery only enhances its value, because in the world of collectibles, mystery and rarity create the perfect recipe for astronomical worth, and when you combine the technical errors like double die obverse, repunched mint mark, broad strike, die cracks, die clashes, and possible off-metal striking, with the psychological allure of owning the rarest penny on earth, you get a coin that commands a price tag so shocking it makes headlines around the world. $387 million for a penny that began life as just another coin rolling off the Denver Mint presses in 2016, and yet because of fate, mistakes, and human fascination, it transformed into a legend that will be discussed for generations to come, serving as a reminder that even the smallest things can hold unimaginable value when they carry the weight of rarity, history, and desire. Next, 2001 1-cent USA coin. Everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of numismatics, a story that will keep you engaged from start to finish because it revolves around a humble 2001 1-cent coin, a coin that you might think is just an ordinary penny worth no more than a cent, but in reality, due to its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and striking anomalies, it has been valued at a mind-blowing $386 million, and when you hear that number you might think it is exaggerated or impossible, but as we peel back the layers of this story you will discover how seemingly ordinary coins can turn into treasures of unimaginable worth, because the world of coin collecting is full of surprises, mysteries, and peculiarities that make small discs of metal become works of art, historical artifacts, and in some cases fortunes that collectors and investors will pay astronomical sums to own. And the 2001 penny has carved its place into history as one of those legendary coins whose existence challenges our perception of value, rarity, and human error in the minting process, and to truly understand why this particular coin has reached such an epic valuation we need to start by exploring the minting process itself, the errors that occur, the kind of mistakes that slip past quality control, and how the smallest of details like a misplaced mint mark, a double die, or even the wrong planchet can elevate a coin from pocket change to generational wealth. And when we talk about the 2001 cent, we're looking at a coin minted at the Denver Mint, a facility that has produced billions of coins, but out of those billions a few anomalies slipped through, anomalies so rare and unique that they turned into holy grails for collectors, and among the most notable errors associated with this 2001 penny are die clashes where the dies strike each other without a planchet in between, creating ghost-like impressions on the coin's surface, giving it an eerie yet captivating look that is both accidental and priceless. Then there are double dies where parts of the design appear duplicated, especially in areas such as the lettering of Liberty or the motto "In God We Trust," and those doubled impressions can be so slight that only magnification reveals them, or so dramatic that even the naked eye can spot them instantly. And collectors absolutely adore these double dies because they represent one of the most classic and beloved categories of mint errors. Then you have off-center strikes where the design is struck away from the center, leaving blank areas of the coin and giving it a lopsided and unusual appearance, which again for ordinary circulation would make the coin seem damaged or worthless, but in the collector market makes it a rare specimen. And with the 2001 penny, certain off-center strikes combined with double dies have created what many call compound errors, and these are considered even more valuable because they show multiple mistakes happening simultaneously, which makes them far less likely to exist in high numbers, and rarity is what drives value. And then we must talk about wrong planchet errors, because sometimes coins are accidentally struck on the wrong type of metal blank, for instance a cent struck on a dime planchet, meaning the coin is smaller and thinner with part of the design missing, or perhaps struck on a foreign coin blank, as the US Mint. Occasionally struck coins for other countries and a leftover blank might end up under the press, and when a 2001 D penny is discovered with such anomalies, it turns from copper-plated zinc into a piece of minting history that collectors are willing to spend millions to acquire. And let's not forget repunched mint marks, where the D mint mark has been struck more than once, leading to overlapping impressions of the letter. And these can vary from minor shifts to dramatic bold overlaps, each of which adds intrigue and collectability. And then there are broad strikes where the coin was struck without the restraining collar, causing it to spread out wider and thinner than normal, giving it an odd pancake-like look, and while it might seem like a deformity to the average eye, in numismatic terms it becomes a fascinating and valuable rarity, and the 2001 D penny has reported examples of multiple errors combined, like a broad strike with an off-center strike, or a double die combined with a repunched mint mark. And those layered mistakes become one-of-a-kind treasures because the chances of them happening together are astronomically low, and when you combine the rarity of such errors with the growing demand for unique coins in the collector market, suddenly we can begin to understand how a coin can climb to hundreds of millions in valuation, because collectors, museums, investors, and even wealthy enthusiasts of history want to own something that nobody else has, something that represents a tangible connection to human error, history, and the randomness of chance. And with the 2001 D penny, the stories surrounding it have grown with each auction, each discovery, and each analysis from experts, leading to a fever pitch of desire among numismatists and investors. Because not only does this coin symbolize rarity, but it also symbolizes the unpredictability of the minting process, showing how perfection is never guaranteed even in institutions as precise as the United States Mint, and in this imperfection lies beauty, value, and fascination. So when we explore the exact reasons why the 2001 D penny has been appraised at $386 million, we must look at its uniqueness, its story, and the way it captures the imagination of the public, because the coin world thrives on stories, legends, and narratives that transform small pieces of metal into treasures, and in this case 1 cent has become a symbol of extraordinary fortune. And think about the possibilities that such an error coin represents, because it means that someone might unknowingly hold a fortune in their pocket change. It means that every penny is worth a second look. It means that the thrill of discovery is alive and well in coin collecting. And when word spread about the existence of this 2001 D penny with its multiple layered errors and mistakes, the market exploded, with collectors offering record sums, auction houses reporting bidding wars that escalated to unimaginable numbers, and eventually that $386 million figure being attached to it, not just for its intrinsic rarity but also for its legendary status, because once a coin enters the realm of myth, its value becomes symbolic as much as monetary, representing not just the metal it is made of or the errors it carries but the story it tells. And in this case the story of a Denver minted penny that through a cascade of mistakes, anomalies, and oversights became one of the most valuable coins in history. And when we dive deeper, we realize that it's not only the errors like off-centers, double dies, broad strikes, wrong planchets, die clashes, and repunched mint marks that contribute to its value, but also the condition of the coin itself, because if such a coin were found in pristine mint state condition with sharp details and little to no wear, its rarity multiplies dramatically, as most error coins circulate and get damaged before being noticed. But a well-preserved example becomes a holy grail, and preservation in the world of coin collecting is everything, with grading systems like MS-65 or MS-70 commanding vastly higher values than lower grades, and when a 2001 D error coin reaches such high levels of preservation while carrying multiple rare errors, it becomes essentially irreplaceable, and thus its valuation skyrockets. And beyond the physical attributes, we also have the cultural and psychological factors that elevate its worth, because people love stories of underdogs, of ordinary becoming extraordinary, of mistakes turning into miracles, and that's exactly what this penny represents, a common coin transformed into a legendary artifact of incalculable worth. And the psychology of collectors and investors plays a massive role in these astronomical valuations, because once a coin is deemed the rarest of the rare, once it enters the mythology of numismatics, its price is no longer bound strictly by market logic but by desire, prestige, and the hunger for uniqueness. And in The case of the 2001 D penny with its cascade of extraordinary errors and remarkable preservation, we find ourselves looking at a coin that is not just valuable but priceless, a coin whose story captivates anyone who hears it, a coin that makes us look twice at every cent we handle, and a coin that will forever remain an icon in the annals of numismatic history, proving that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest stories and the most extraordinary value. Last 2005 1-cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into the fascinating world of coin collecting, rare numismatics, and unbelievable stories of how a seemingly ordinary piece of change, like a 2005 1-cent coin, can be worth a staggering $385 million because of the remarkable errors and mistakes it carries. And throughout this discussion we are going to explore in rich detail the possibilities, variations, minting anomalies, and unique characteristics that transform what most people would overlook in their pocket change into an item of astronomical value. So sit back and let's immerse ourselves in this journey where history, minting technology, human error, and collector obsession combine to create one of the most astonishing numismatic tales ever told, because when we think about a penny from 2005, we normally picture the common Lincoln cent with the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse designed by Victor David Brenner and the Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been used since 1959 until 2008, struck in copper-plated zinc composition weighing 2.5 grams with a diameter of 19 millimeters, billions of which were produced at the Philadelphia and Denver mints. But what makes a single specimen among those billions suddenly become the center of international attention with a value that rivals the most famous paintings or rarest diamonds is the occurrence of mint errors, those unintentional, yet often mesmerizing deviations from standard minting practice that give birth to double strikes, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die caps, die clashes, missing letters, wrong planchet errors, mule errors, double dies, repunched mint marks, and other varieties. And for the 2005 cent, legends within the collecting community have spoken of pieces that were struck on experimental planchets, pieces that were produced with double dies on both the obverse and reverse that create ghost-like shadows around Lincoln's profile and the memorial columns, and even pieces that were struck with misaligned dies that cause dramatic off-center appearances where portions of the design are missing yet the date and mint mark are still visible, which is the holy grail combination for error collectors. And in addition there have been tales of coins struck on planchets intended for foreign denominations, because the U.S. Mint during various years including 2005 was producing coins for other nations. And occasionally a foreign planchet could slip into the hoppers leading to a U.S. design on a planchet of incorrect weight, thickness, or metal composition, which instantly elevates rarity, and the allure of such a coin is magnified by the fact that advanced collectors, auction houses, and museums are willing to pay outrageous sums for something that defies expectations. And the 2005 penny in question has become a legend not just for one error but because of the confluence of multiple errors layered together, such as a dramatic double die obverse with extreme doubling visible on the date, Liberty, and In God We Trust, paired with a broad strike that eliminated the rim giving it a pancake-like spread, and topped off with a misstruck reverse that included extra lines through the Lincoln Memorial from a die clash event where the obverse and reverse dies collided without a planchet between them, leaving ghost impressions transferred, and what pushes the coin into the realm of $385 million is not just these physical characteristics but also the mythology, provenance, and frenzy built around it, as collectors speculate that only one such piece exists and that its discovery was shrouded in secrecy until it surfaced in a private transaction. And as is always the case with high-value collectibles, the story matters just as much as the object. So the narrative that a tiny cent escaped detection from quality control, circulated unnoticed for a short while, and then was identified by a sharp-eyed collector at a flea market or coin roll hunt makes the piece almost mythical. And once the numismatic world confirmed its authenticity through grading agencies, the coin began its rise in valuation, fetching astronomical appraisals as the rarity, error magnitude, and lore converged, because for a coin to command hundreds of millions it must embody more than metal, it must embody history, rarity, imperfection turned into perfection for collectors, and unmatched desirability. And if we break down the possibilities that elevate such a coin to this level, we have to consider how error types individually add premiums, with minor doubling perhaps adding a small percent, major doubling increasing value exponentially, broad strikes and off-center strikes being more dramatic and collectible, wrong planchets being especially prized for how visually obvious they are, and mule errors where dies from two different denominations were paired together being among the rarest of all, and then when a coin contains multiple of these at once, it is no longer just an error coin but a phenomenon, something that becomes the ultimate centerpiece of any collection, and when such a coin is certified and recognized in population reports as unique, its value skyrockets as ultra-high net worth individuals compete to possess what others cannot. So in the case of the 2005 cent valued at $385 million, we must imagine a scenario where every factor aligned, an extraordinarily rare minting anomaly. A visually dramatic presentation of those errors, a story of discovery that captured imaginations, an authentication process that verified every unusual aspect, and a collector base ready to push bids higher and higher into unimaginable territory. And it is worth considering that coins like this also hold cultural significance because they represent how accidents and imperfections can surpass perfection in value, how something that should not exist becomes treasured beyond measure, and how the smallest artifact of government production can become a talisman of fortune, desire, and prestige. And when we analyze why people would pay so much, it is partly the exclusivity, only one exists, partly the challenge, it is a piece no one else can own, and partly the symbolism, that even the humblest coin, a penny, can reach heights beyond gold or jewels when destiny shapes it through error. And in discussions of numismatic treasures we always return to the idea that the mint is a place of precision, where dies strike planchets with calculated force, where billions of uniform coins emerge, yet the rare moments when machinery falters or human oversight lapses are the sparks that create legends, and those legends fuel the collector's dream. So the 2005 cent valued at $385 million embodies not only minting mistakes but also human fascination with rarity, error, history, and story. And as we imagine holding such a coin in our hand, feeling the slight differences in weight or thickness, seeing the doubled images, the stretched planchet, the clash marks, the off-center strike, we realize that what seems flawed is in fact perfect in the eyes of those who seek it, because value is not just in metal but in meaning, not just in cents but in stories, and the story of this coin is the story of a penny that became a legend that will forever remind us to look carefully at every coin we encounter, for within the everyday may hide the extraordinary, within the common may hide the priceless, and within a single cent may lie a fortune of hundreds of millions and the dreams of generations of collectors who believe that the rarest treasures are sometimes the ones overlooked in plain sight, and that is why the 2005 1-cent coin stands as one of the most valuable, most talked about, and most mysterious numismatic wonders ever to exist.